Good day everyone. So I am here now to explain the public debt management and also the domestic and foreign debt. Public debt management is a process of establishing and executing a strategy for managing the government's debt in order to the first one was to achieve the risk and cost objectives. The second one was to raise the required amount of funding. And the third one was to meet any other sovereign debt management goals. In order for the government to borrow money domestically and from foreign bank, they needed to, the first one was to finance the budget deficit by incurring debt. The second one was to borrow it by issuing debt instruments like bonds and treasury bills locally and internationally. And the third one was to refinance maturing debt or a debt redeemed before maturity date. And the last one was to issue debt instruments in order to assist the central bank or the CB in controlling the domestic monetary situation. So now let's proceed to the issues involved in public debt management, which includes domestic versus foreign debt, which local debt is treasury bills and bonds of various types, inflation linked, zero coupon, and floating rate, while the foreign debt is also known as external debt, is a money borrowed by a government, corporation, or by private household from another country's government or private lenders. The second issues involved in public debt management is the term structure of debt. Here, the objective is to minimize the interest burden. So, the third issue was the relationship with monetary policy. This means that central government is required to ensure that sufficiency of supply of treasury bills and short-term government bonds is taken into account in decisions on the term to maturity of new issues. Next is the in-progress debt management. So once a debt is issued, it does mean that it cannot be repurchased by government. The considerations are the cash flow management, term structure management, and minimize interest burden. The last issue involved is the debt to GDP ratio or ratio to gross domestic product. So GDP is used internationally as a measure of fiscal discipline. In most countries, a ratio in excess of 60% is deemed to be excessive. The ratio has a bearing on the rating of the country and therefore on the availability of foreign funds and the level of interest rate.
The Philippine government has so far to update to repay the nation's debt as a matter than a debt. It is not a result of resent during Marcos period, such as crony corporations had loaned much of that new debt obtained ostensibly for the growth and development projects was eventually loaded at the Marcos and their cronies